know some Hawkeye fans don't like talking about players who are no longer with the program, but I'm thinking here in the next couple of days, we're going to talk about some players who are no longer with the Iowa program. Yes, I know there's a difference between leaving Iowa for the transfer portal and pursuing an NFL career and being out of eligibility. But today we're going to talk about former Iowa quarterback Brendan Sullivan. He made his transfer portal announcement today. His next destination is set. We'll talk about it in just a second. But first, a reminder to please hit that like button. And folks, if you're on social media, Facebook, Instagram, of course, you can follow me on those platforms, but also share the link to this video and all of our content out. The more you share, the more you like, the more you comment. Tell me what you think about my presentation, about this move for Brendan Sullivan, etc. The more you do all those things, the more it helps the channel to grow, and the more content we'll be able to provide, not just during the offseason, but all season long: football, men's basketball, women's basketball, and maybe, etc. Folks, thank you in advance for your support here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. So the news that we're addressing here on this Thursday evening: former Iowa quarterback Brendan Sullivan has committed to Tulane University, the Green Wave. What to make of this move? Brendan Sullivan entered the portal just a couple weeks ago and was immediately considered one of the better quarterback prospects out there. There haven't been a ton of high major quarterbacks, proven guys, that have entered the portal during the spring period. And you kind of expect that, although this has been a more fruitful and busy period window. We don't normally see this much activity. I don't know what the final numbers would indicate. I do know that the transfer portal window closes this week for the spring period. Of course, there are exceptions to that rule, but there weren't a ton of high major proven quarterbacks. Brendan Sullivan is a guy who has played at multiple Power 4 programs and started games. So he commits to Tulane. When he initially entered the portal, it's interesting, there were reports that there were some high major schools, including Virginia Tech and Michigan, interested in the Michigan native. Yes, Brendan Sullivan is actually from Davison, Michigan, and that's about an hour drive from Ann Arbor. So I don't recall asking or talking to Brendan Sullivan during media availability about his upbringing. I don't know that he grew up a Michigan fan, but my guess is he probably did, having lived an hour from Ann Arbor. But it sounds like Michigan was at least testing the waters on potentially bringing Brendan Sullivan in to compete with Bryce Underwood. Of course, Underwood, a very talented, highly touted 5-star recruit who has all the accolades in the world, but he's going to be a true freshman. They're still incredibly talented at Michigan, and I would think Sullivan is making this decision because he believes he's got an excellent chance to start at Tulane. As far as NIL is concerned, I don't know what Tulane's able to offer Brendan Sullivan. I do know that they have a number of other quarterbacks on the roster that have come from different institutions, including Ball State. They got a kid from Illinois. They also brought in TJ Finley. Finley's an interesting one. He's facing some legal issues right now. He was allegedly caught with a stolen truck here recently and was suspended from all team activities. Now, his lawyer claims that that truck was part of a marketplace scam and that Finley was not aware that it was stolen. So that's a mess. That's a hot mess. If Finley were to be the starting quarterback for Tulane, it would be his fifth school. It is his fifth school. Finley's played at Texas State, LSU, Auburn for 2 years, and Western Kentucky. This would be year 6, and again, his fifth total school. But with the legal problems, this opens up the potential for a guy like Iowa transfer Brendan Sullivan to come in and start right away. And the other guys that are on this roster on the depth chart are much less proven than Sullivan is. The other interesting thing about this, and I'm not saying this was calculated by Sullivan, but guess who Tulane's first opponent of 2025 is? It's Northwestern. It has been well documented that Sullivan was real excited to play the Wildcats last year as a Hawkeye, and he made the most of it, played very well in that game. In fact, if you look back at the stats, he was 9 of 14, 80 yards passing, very efficient through the air on that day, also rushed for 40 yards and a touchdown. So my guess is he's very excited to play his former team, and he'll get to do so in the friendly confines down at Tulane University. If you look at Sullivan's stats, Tulane's getting a guy who has put together some good numbers. I mean, I know you go back to the video I published here a week or two ago when Sullivan initially entered the portal, and I talked about how he kind of struggled in the second half of the bowl game against Missouri, and he had his ups and downs during the season, got hurt in a pivotal game against UCLA that went awry. And certainly that hurt Iowa collectively. And they dealt with just injury issues up the wazoo last year. And they had the last couple of years, really. But Sullivan really provided a spark. Iowa fans were really discouraged during the early parts of 2024 with the performances of Cade McNamara. And Sullivan was being brought in as a red zone threat, as a quarterback. And he really did light a fire under people. It's interesting. He won Team Hustle Award for offense for Iowa in 2024. I don't know how many quarterbacks typically get that award or named the hustle guy, but that's impressive for an Iowa quarterback who had just gotten to campus. Remember, him and Jacob Gill were roommates. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, I don't think Jacob Gill's going anywhere. Of course, the window closing this week, and they need him to return in 2025. I think he's their best receiver, at least proven receiver at this point. But he and Jacob Gill were very close. And Sullivan totaled 3 starts this past year, I should say, at Iowa, 10 games played. If you look at his stats, again, pretty impressive, even though he had his ups and downs. If you look at everything as a whole, Sullivan rushed for 150 yards on 47 carries. That's good for 3.2 a carry. Of course, in college, that's combined with sacks. So those are good numbers. And he threw for almost 500 yards on just 53 pass attempts, 72% through the air, and a touchdown percentage of 5.7, which is solid. Did have 3 interceptions to go along with the 3 touchdowns, but then you add in the fact that he rushed for 4 touchdowns. I'll take the 8-4 on any day. And his passer rating has actually improved every year he's been in the Big Ten. Went from 133, which is not bad in year 1, to 140.2, and last year 154.3. I think the question, Hawkeye fans, and I've talked about it, Coach Don Patterson on this show has talked about it, is he a guy that's going to break a sweat in those big moments? And I do think maybe there were signs in that bowl game, or at least questions about his ability to close. And that game, that loss was not just on Brendan Sullivan, don't get me wrong, but he certainly played better in the first half than he did in the second half, with Mark Gronowski coming in from South Dakota State. Most people, including, I think, Kirk Ferentz, Tim Lester, and the coaching staff, they expect Gronowski, when healthy, to be the starter. Sounds like they like Hank Brown. At least early returns on the Auburn transfer are positive. So I was not surprised when Sullivan entered the portal. But I am a Brendan Sullivan fan. And for the people that don't like Brendan Sullivan because he left, I mean, come on. The guy he's got 1 year left. He's got 1 year of college football left. He's got good size, by the way, at 6'4", 6'5", 220. I guess if he puts together a really impressive year at Tulane, hey, who knows? Maybe he could end up on a draft board. And I'm serious about that. Hey, Tulane's last quarterback, Darian Mensah, allegedly got a bag. There are different reports about how much he got from Duke, but he transferred to Duke after a really impressive season. Just 1 year at Tulane. Really incredible, the numbers that have been thrown out there for some of the higher rated portal prospects, even from G5 schools like Tulane. And Tulane is one of the best G5 schools in the country. People will remember their win against USC a couple of years ago. But I'm not surprised that Brendan Sullivan ended up at Tulane. My guess is that Michigan kind of tested the waters, but they were going to be slow to offer a scholarship if they had one to give. Who knows about Virginia Tech? I'm kind of surprised that Brendan Sullivan didn't at least take a visit to Michigan. But again, I don't know the ins and outs of what level of interest there was there. And if Sullivan was just dead set on, hey, I want to have a good shot at starting, and he just didn't feel that was there at Michigan, I guess why take the time to visit? He'll have 1 year of eligibility remaining, and this is his 5th year after taking a redshirt in 21, playing 2 years at Northwestern, and then this past year at Iowa. By the way, TJ Finley, that other quarterback that transferred in, this would be his 5th school at Tulane. Finley has a court appearance in just over a month on June 1st. So I'll kind of be intrigued to see how that all plays out. I'll be rooting for Brendan Sullivan this year. Tulane's typically a fun team to watch in bowl season. Not just that USC game, but they're a fun team to watch in bowl season. They're well coached. And what's interesting, too, is their schedule. They play Northwestern first, and then they have a game later on in the season against Ole Miss. Very interesting stuff. Again, the latest, Brendan Sullivan committing to Tulane, and he will join the Green Wave for his final year of eligibility. Congratulations to the former Wildcat and Hawkeye. Folks, hit that like button. Please do that on your way out. Be sure you're subscribed. We'll talk to you tomorrow.